So, today let's speak about Europe and its stance on the European crisis. There was on the internet a very interesting video. It is a university lecture organized by McFall, who was the American ambassador during the Obama years in Moscow. And at Stanford University, he invited the Russian ambassador to speak about Ukraine. It was before the war. And in this discussion, the Russian ambassador spoke about the events 2013. This was the year when the European Union has offered an association agreement to Ukraine, which would mean that Europe partially opens in market for the European goods. In exchange for it, it requires Ukraine to build up a custom wall on the Russian-Ukrainian border. The Russians approached Europe and they told Europe, look, you couldn't do this because the Ukrainian and the Russian economy was an interwoven economic sphere. And a lot of Ukrainian companies, especially in the Donetsk basin, is working with the Russian industry, partially the military industrial complex. If we introduce this one, it would make a major trouble for the Ukrainian economy. Why don't we do a triangle agreement? We don't mind if Ukraine is approaching European Union, but we have to have an agreement which is allowing not only the opening up the European market to Ukraine a bit more, but also which is let open the Russian-Ukrainian border and economic cooperation. As we know from the history, this Russian offer was rejected by the European Union. The Ukrainian president then, although began the negotiations on the European Association Agreement, but finally rejected because he feared that would mean the collapse of the Ukrainian-Russian economic relation, and his rejection led to Maidan. To a certain extent, Maidan, if I want to a conspiracy theory, was to a certain extent provoked by this rejection of the then Ukrainian president and the wish to join to the European Union. I mean, this already paved the way to the war today. I mean, we know famously, John Mearsheimer's famous talk, 2014, when he presaged that will be a war because of where is Ukraine stands, is a key issue for Russia, and it won't let it go out of his sphere of influence. Europe decided to snatch Ukraine. But at the same time, what a strategic shortage. I mean, they went ahead to reducing their military defense budget. They went ahead to increase their dependence on Russian gas, Nord Stream 2. And they didn't prepare at all for a major conflict. Then the major conflict came, the war. We are in 2 years in it. And Europe is in major trouble. We know from the Draghi report, cutting the Russian line and losing the Russian market was a major blow to the European manufacturers and the European industry. This comes today two very important news. One is the Twitter today of Scholz, Bundeskanzler Olaf Scholz, the German Chancellor. He said in his tweet, "We are Ukraine's biggest supporter and we continue to stand by its side. But paying for this support at the expense of pensioners, as the former finance minister suggested, cannot be allowed." It's very clear. Europe is waging a war of words, but it doesn't want to pay its price in terms of investing its military industry complex, cutting welfare provisions to pay for this, and to submit the weaponry which Ukraine needs to defend itself. It lost not now because it's already too late. We are in the second year of the war. Ukraine is bleeding. Europe didn't begin the shift towards a military procurement and military reinforcement of its military weapon production at the beginning of the war, and it's too late. The only one country which did something seriously is Poland, which is spending now 5% of its GDP to reinforce its military. But all other European countries, they at the maximum they reach the 2%, and some bit above that. Europe is unprepared to wage a major conflict. It do not want to enter into a conflict, but still speaking like it wants to do. It's very clear from the next article, which I would like to speak about today. The Telegraph has a major article that Starmer is negotiating with Macron to thwart Trump on Ukraine. And he says that Europe need to build up its own coalition to support Ukraine. But inside the article, we can also read that Britain, because of its financial problems, does not want to spend the promised 2.5% to increase its military budget to 2.5% of the GDP. So not even the stated goal it has the chance to achieve, but it will be smaller. The British military, the UK military has about 50,000 troops ready to deploy. 50,000 troops is about 2 weeks or 3 weeks in the current rate of death and destruction in the Ukrainian front. What we are speaking about? It seems that European politicians are living in the clouds. They unable to put together a cohesive strategic view. What is the real limitations? And instead of, they are paying words that we are very aggressive in words, and there is no enough background to support their words. This is the Ukrainian tragedy. Boris Johnson 2 years ago has blocked an early end of the war. It would have been much better for Ukraine 2 years ago stop the war, avoid loss of life of millions maybe, and immigration of millions and destruction of Ukraine physical infrastructure. We are in the second year of the war. The US is about to leave. Europe still speak on the language of war, and there is no background for it.